Excellency, I present the individual recipients of Australian Honours. The following appointment to Officer of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been made. Professor Marcello Costa is recognised for distinguished service to higher education and to medical research in the field of neurophysiology and to professional scientific bodies. Professor Costa is an Italian-born Australian medical researcher, academic and public health advocate. He moved to Adelaide in 1975, where he was a foundation lecturer at the Flinders Medical School, building the new discipline of neuroscience at the college. He enjoyed a long career at Flinders University and in 2012 was appointed the Matthew Flinders Distinguished Professor of Neurophysiology in the Department of Physiology. His research focused on the nervous system, specifically how it interacts with the gut, and he authored or co-authored more than 250 works on that subject. During his career, he has made a range of landmark discoveries about the role of neurons in driving the activity of the gut, recognising that a person's neurological system shapes their thoughts, culture, intellectual capacity, emotions and bodily functions. Professor Costa co-founded the Australian Neuroscience Society, the South Australian Neuroscience Institute and the Friends of Science in Medicine. Professor Marcello Costa. Your Excellency, Professor Isabella Carolyn Macmillan is recognised for distinguished service to medical science and to tertiary education, to the community of South Australia and to social equity. Professor Macmillan is South Australia's Chief Scientist, a Director of the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute and a Counsellor of the University of South Australia. Born in Belfast, she was educated at Oxford and Cambridge before she came to Australia in 1983 to lecture at Monash University. Professor Macmillan's passion has been investigating nutritional and other influences of the mother on the embryo and their link to diseases in later life, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes and obesity. She has published more than 200 scientific papers over the course of her career. Professor Macmillan has held several senior positions in the tertiary sector, including Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research and Innovation at the University of South Australia, Head of the Department of Physiology at the University of Adelaide, and Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of Newcastle. Her diverse skills have also seen her serve on many boards, including the National Automotive Industry Innovation Council and the Cooperative Research Centre for Rail Innovation. Professor Isabella Carolyn Macmillan. Your Excellency, the following appointments to Member of the Order of Australia in the General Division have been made. Dr. Jennifer Abbey Abbey is recognised for significant service to the health of aged persons, particularly to pain care management. Dr. Abbey is a respected researcher in the field of palliative care and the needs of people with dementia. A staunch advocate for people who can't express themselves or articulate their experience of pain, she is the innovator behind the Abbey Pain Scale. This has become the Australian and international standard assessment tool for assessing pain in people who are unable to verbalise their needs. A Foundation Director of one of the 3 National Dementia Collaborative Research Centres established under the Australian Government's National Dementia Initiative, she has also contributed her expertise to leading universities across Australia, including lecturing in nursing and in research roles. Dr. Abbey has also contributed her expertise to several roles, including board member and chair of the Glenside Hospital, the Guardianship Board, and chair of the South Australian Council of Ageing. In her various advisory roles, Dr. Abbey has been at the forefront of bridging the gap between research and practice, bringing considerable benefits to the care of older Australians. Dr. Jennifer Abbey Abbey. Your Excellency, Mr. Charles Morland Bales is recognised for significant service to the law, to professional legal societies and to the community. Mr. Bales firmly believes that the law is the bedrock of our society and has combined his legal expertise with helping people to understand its importance. As well as his managing partner role at the Adelaide legal firm of Tyndall Gusk Bentley, Mr. Bales has served in many volunteer positions, including President of the Law Council of Australia and the Law Society of South Australia. Known as a forward-thinking strategist with an unwavering commitment to his industry and improving access to justice, he was the recipient of the Law Society's prestigious Brian Withers Award in 2013. Mr. Bales has also served as principal advisor to various workplace organisations such as the Police Association, the Correctional Officers Legal Fund and the South Australian State School Leaders Association. In his community role, Mr. Bales is a board member of the Women and Children's Hospital Foundation, Vice President of the Liberal Party and a commentator on a wide range of legal issues as a columnist for In Daily. Mr. Charles Morland Bales. Your Excellency, Dr. Neil Lyle Bryans is recognised for significant service to science and defence capability technology through radar and telecommunications research. Dr. Bryans is recognised nationally as an outstanding leader of defence research. During his 50-year career with the Defence Science and Technology, he made significant contributions in radar, cyber intelligence, counter-terrorism and communications worth more than $5 billion. His career was characterised by unwavering persistence in searching pioneer initiatives and persisting with them until they achieved sustainable impacts. His vision, drive and leadership culminated in him becoming Deputy Chief Defence Scientist. Dedicating his career to research and leadership, he was the Executive Director of the Counter-Terrorism and Technology Centre at the Defence Science and Technology Group from 2007 to 2012. Committed to upskilling the profession, Dr. Bryans was instrumental in the formation of its Institute for Telecommunications Research through his long association with the University of South Australia. He is also recognised for his contribution to the University of Adelaide as an advisory board member for the Institute for Photonics and Advanced Sensing. He has served on the boards of 2 cooperative research centres and was a member of the Premier's Science and Research Council and a founding member of the South Australian Broadband Research and Education Network. Dr. Neil Lyle Bryans. Your Excellency, Dr. Gabrielle Afifi Czechic is recognised for significant service to medicine, to nuclear oncology and to professional medical groups. Dr. Czechic is widely known amongst her peers for her quest to continually improve the quality of life for nuclear medicine and cancer patients. She is the driving force behind the introduction and success of a specialised nuclear medicine treatment for neuroendocrine tumours known as NETs. These cancers make hormones that attack many of the organs that regulate the body's functions, such as lungs and the gastrointestinal tract, resulting in dramatic impacts on patients' metabolism and life expectancy. Through Dr. Czechic's work, patients spend less time in hospital and are able to live their best possible life. Other areas of her professional expertise include treatments for thyroid disease and cancers. A graduate of the University of Adelaide, she is a specialist at Flinders Medical Centre, the Queen Elizabeth and the Lyle McEwen Hospitals, and at Radiology SA. Known for her energetic commitment to implementing and communicating medical advancements, she is a member of several professional associations and was co-convener of the 2019 Australian and New Zealand Society of Nuclear Medicine Conference in Adelaide. Dr. Gabrielle Afifi Czechic. Your Excellency, Mrs. Melanie Grace Champion Decrepany is recognised for significant service to youth through charitable organisations. Mrs. Champion Decrepany has a strong belief in the power of education and that opportunities for teenagers can be sparked by enabling them to stay at school. She has been a vital part of the success of the Youth Opportunities Programme for more than 9 years as a board member. The programme ensures young people have tools and skills to gain self-confidence, self-worth, resilience and motivation to overcome adversity and lift themselves out of the cycle of poverty. Drawing on business networks and experience in fundraising, she started the Stars in the Garden charitable event held just before each Christmas at her family home. Through her generosity of spirit, more than 1,200 teenagers who would otherwise have dropped out of school have benefited from the programme. Mrs. Champion Decrepany was named Citizen of the Year by the town of Walkerville in 2018 and is also recognised for her contribution to several organisations, including the Wilderness School Foundation, the St. Peter's College Mission Guild, St. Andrew's School Council, the State Opera and the Royal Society for the Blind. Mrs. Melanie Grace Champion Decrepany. Your Excellency, the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been awarded to the following recipients. The Honourable Lynette Ruth Brewer is recognised for service to the Parliament of South Australia and to local government. As the former member for Giles in the State Parliament, Mrs. Brewer had a challenging role, serving the state's largest electorate by area, covering not only Whyalla, but much of the remote Western Outback. During her 17 years in State Parliament, Mrs. Brewer made history when she became the Speaker of the House of Assembly, the first woman to do so. She is also recognised for service to the Whyalla Council as a councillor, deputy mayor and mayor. A former junior vice president of the Australian Labor Party, she was a member of its state executive for 10 years. Her love of theatre has seen her contribute to the Whyalla Players as a member for more than 30 years, serving as a committee member and patron. Mrs. Brewer also inaugurated and sponsored an Emerging Young Talent Award to encourage young people to become involved in the arts. The Honourable Lynette Ruth Brewer. Your Excellency, Mr. Graham John Davis is recognised for service to sport in South Australia. When Mr. Davis's children took up athletics, little did he know it would become a passion of his own. In the early 1990s, he established the Hills District's Athletic Club, which won almost 100 premierships under his management. In 1996, Mr. Davis joined Athletics SA as a field officer in development. He organised clinics in over 120 state schools, which increased junior membership at Athletics SA by almost 50%. Mr. Davis also has a love of tennis and table tennis, and for many decades has been an active member of the Aldgate table tennis and tennis clubs. In 2014, he delivered a Let's Get Active program to over 100 schools and communities in the APY lands in the Central Desert regions. Mr. Graham John Davis. Your Excellency, Mrs. Margaret Ann Dent is recognised for service to the community. Mrs. Dent is a well-known figure on the Fleurieu Peninsula, contributing to a wide range of community organisations over many years. She was a founding member of the Zonta Club of the Fleurieu Peninsula in 1978 and has served as the club as Director, Vice President, Secretary and more. She is currently Secretary of the Southern Fleurieu Historical Museum and a volunteer with the Port Elliot Show Society. A lover of horses, Mrs. Dent is committed to supporting the Fleurieu equestrian community and making horse riding accessible to everyone. She was a founding member of Riding for the Disabled at Victor Harbour and is a former president and judge with the Side Saddle Association of South Australia. She is a life member of both organisations. Mrs. Margaret Ann Dent. Your Excellency, Mr. William David Hardy is recognised for service to the wine industry. Mr. Hardy was born into a South Australian winemaking dynasty. His winemaking career spanned 23 years, making wine in South Australia, Western Australia and France. Mr. Hardy became Hardy's brand ambassador, spending 2 decades travelling Australia and the world, promoting the unique heritage and outstanding quality of his company's wines. He grew Hardy's reputation and output during a period of history where Australia's domestic consumption of wine tripled and when Australian wine exports were booming. Mr. Hardy has also worked tirelessly in support of the wine industry at the local and national level. He is a former president of the Australian Society of Viticulture and Oenology, a former chairman of the McLaren Vale Winemakers Association, and a life member of Wine Communicators of Australia. Mr. William David Hardy. Your Excellency, Mr. Graham Elwood Litster is recognised for service to water polo. Mr. Litster has been an outstanding advocate for the sport of water polo for over 40 years, as both a competitor and a coach. In 1971, he co-created Flipperball, a modified form of water polo which caters to players as young as 8 years old. Flipperball has since been adopted throughout Australia and remains popular today. Mr. Litster has made major contributions to water polo at the club level in South Australia. He helped to establish the North East Aquatics Club and the St Peter's College Old Scholars Club. He's also been crucial to the success of Eastern Saints Water Polo Club, of which he is the inaugural life member. Mr. Litster was a silver medalist at the World Masters Championships in 2012. Mr. Graham Elwood Litster. Your Excellency, Mrs. Jillian Ruth Patterson is recognised for service to the community of Meningie, and Mr. William Robert Patterson is recognised for service to the community of Meningie and to natural resource conservation. A picturesque town on the edge of Lake Albert in our state's southeast, Meningie is home to a close community that has benefited greatly from the contribution of its long-serving member, Mrs. Jill Patterson. Mrs. Patterson and her husband Bill are at the heart and soul of Meningie Uniting Church, where they have been active parishioners for many decades. Mrs. Patterson is Vice Chair of Meningie Probus Club, a former chairperson of Meningie Area School Parents and Friends Association, and a member of the Meningie Museum. For 8 years, she was also a volunteer for an Aboriginal college near Uluru, where she would regularly travel to assist with school administration. Mr. Patterson devoted his professional life to his community as a local government leader for nearly 30 years, first as District Clerk of the District Council of Meningie and then Chief Executive Officer of the Coorong District Council. Mr. Patterson is an advocate for the natural environment of his local area. He is a former chair of the South Australian Murray-Darling Basin Natural Resources Management Board and is current chair of the Coorong, Lower Lakes and Murray Mouth Community Advisory Panel. Outside of his career, Mr. Patterson has furthered his dedication to the local community, particularly at the Meningie Uniting Church, where he has been a lay preacher, secretary to the congregation, convener of the Men's Breakfast Club, and much more. In addition, he was a founding member of the Meningie Probus Club, Lakes Suicide Prevention Network, and Meningie Land Care Management Group. Mrs. Jillian Ruth Patterson and Mr. William Robert Patterson. Your Excellency, Corporal Matthew James Williams is recognised for service to the community through brain cancer awareness initiatives. In 2017, shortly after returning to South Australia from active duty in Afghanistan, Mr. Williams began to endure persistent headaches. He was diagnosed with stage 2 brain cancer at the age of 21. Mr. Williams has faced an uncertain prognosis with a positive spirit. He shares his cancer journey on social media, inspiring thousands of followers and growing community awareness of brain cancer, its causes, and the pursuits of a cure. Mr. Williams is an ambassador for the Cure Brain Cancer Foundation and has raised considerable funds for its work through the Brain Cancer Tyre Flipping Challenge, where he flipped an 80-kilo tyre for 2 kilometres. Mr. Williams is the youngest recipient of a medal in the Order of Australia in the 2020 Queen's Birthday Honours. Corporal Matthew James Williams. Your Excellency, a commendation for brave conduct has been awarded to Mr. Lee James Dobson and Mr. Benjamin Terence Mackenzie for the rescue of 2 boys from a rip at the Murray Mouth in South Australia. On 27 January 2019, Mr. Dobson and Mr. Mackenzie were fishing at the Murray Mouth when they heard a woman screaming that 2 boys were drowning after being swept away in a strong rip. Mr. Mackenzie immediately dived into the water and swam to one of the boys, who had been swept 20 metres out in the middle of the mouth and was flailing in the water. After getting hold of the first boy, Mr. Mackenzie reached down and felt for the second boy, who was clinging onto the first boy's ankle. He quickly dived down and pulled the second boy up above the water. Mr. Dobson also entered the water and assisted in keeping the distressed boys afloat. Both men struggled to stay afloat in the surging rip. A surfer on a bodyboard arrived to assist, and another male on a jet ski also arrived and towed the exhausted group to the safety of the shore. For their actions, Mr. Dobson and Mr. Mackenzie are commended for brave conduct. Mr. Lee James Dobson and Mr. Benjamin Terence Mackenzie.